This is Tara from Tree Sisters, and on the Indigenous Wisdom for the Earth series this month, I sat down with Mukamba Watongoka Michel from the Worldwide Initiative for Development, Hands for the Little. He is working in the east part of the District Republic of the Congo for the Pygmy people. Now, the Pygmies are recognized as the first and oldest inhabitants of sub-Saharan Africa, and before colonization, they occupied all of Central Africa. So these people were the original people of this land and had been there for hundreds of years. Unfortunately, their history is one where they were driven out over and over again by different factions and different groups of people. I'm going to read out some of the back history of the Pygmy people so that there is a context for you when you go to watch the section which was recorded between Mukamba and myself. We were having some internet issues and he wasn't able to provide the background information, which I think will help you to understand the information he's presenting. So basically, these Pygmies were a hunting and gathering nomadic tribe. They lived off the land. They would hunt where the food was, and that would change with the seasons. Unfortunately, a group named the Bantu came in and pushed them off their original land so that they could occupy the fertile land for agricultural reasons. And the Pygmies then retreated more into the woods so they could continue hunting and gathering. However, the Bantu were destroying the forest so they could expand their agriculture, which then forced the Pygmies to go even further deeper into the woods to a forest area which stretched between Mount Kahoozi and Mount Biaga. In 1937, the government at that time decided to create a reserve called the Mount Kahoozi Zoological and Forest Reserve. And this reserve stayed intact for many years. In fact, in 1970, it became the Kahuzi Biaga National Park. This park is one of the largest reserves assigned to the conservation of flora and fauna of the high mountain forest in Central Africa. It is also the land where the Pygmies were living. And the government decided to create a guerrilla reserve on that particular area of land, which then forced the Pygmy people to move out. They were prohibited from hunting in the park area where they had been living all their lives. So there are food resources, the medicinal plants that they relied on. There are places of worship, the areas that were sacred to them. All this was taken away from them without really relocating them and making sure that they were set up to continue their lives and culture. This, of course, had a very negative impact on them culturally and psychologically, losing the home that they had lived for decades in and being threatened to not be allowed to come back into that area. This was all very hard on them, and many of them were forced into a rather destitute lifestyle. They had no property. They had no way to make income. All they had ever known was hunting and gathering. They tried to establish ways to make money, but unfortunately, just as they started to get another hold of land, they were victims of a Rwandan war, in that two sides were fighting and they were pushed out by the fighting. And those who were caught up in the fighting, they were either left to fend for themselves, or sometimes they were caught and taken. And those who were taken, if they were able to escape from these warring peoples and come back to the tribe, they were met with panic and discrimination and disbelief because they were concerned that they were actually spies for the warring tribe. So again, this added another layer of rejection and discrimination on top of the frustration they were already living with. And the government wasn't responding to their rights and their well-being. It led them to, let me read his exact words. This pushed them to lead a life of sinister wandering. They were exposed to insecurities. They're miserable. They lead a life of social disruption, deculturalization, expulsion with no access to land, lack of basic social services or natural resources, a difficult adaptation to a new way of life, which was very marginalizing and depriving them of basic human rights. So, as you can gather from that, it was extremely difficult and challenging circumstances that these people find themselves in, and that is where Mukamba and his group, Worldwide Initiative for Development, come into the story. They are working with some of the Pygmies who are currently residing in the Congo, and they are working on different projects to assist them. I'm going to also name some of the projects before we go over to the video, simply so you can hear clearly the different things that are being done. The first thing they did was construct some primary schools to help support education for younger students as well as some university-age students. They selected 11 men and women, Pygmies, to go to South Korea to train to become doctors. They have a project called the Umaja Project, which means together, and they're trying to construct cultural centers for peace and reconciliation, which Mukamba will speak about in his video. They also distributed 253 goats and 78 pigs to Pygmy families to help provide them with some resources. They created 2 sewing schools to help teach the women Pygmies some skills so that they can go and earn some money. They also have opened some carpentry so that the men Pygmies can also go and learn some skills so they can earn some money to buy some food. One thing that Mukamba wanted me to try to emphasize was that these people have known all their lives hunting and gathering. So things like sewing skills and carpentry and farming the land and, actually having a plot of land that isn't dry and arid and stays in their possession for a period long enough for crops to grow has all been a challenge. It's been very, very difficult. And this group that Mukamba works for, they mentioned that they are doing the best they can. They don't have much of a budget. They're hoping to find organizations who can support them, whether that's with funding or whether that's with ideas or whether that's with some technical support, or perhaps there's some training that could come in and teach some agricultural methods to these people, or maybe medicinal. They are particularly hoping that South Korea might be able to partner with them to help train about the environment, because the Pygmy people could be excellent stewards to protect the environment, because that is their way of life. They spend 95% of their life in the forest, and he's hoping that they can learn the skills of how to protect the forest so that they can also continue their culture and live their lives in the forest. So we'll provide some contact information from Mukamba at the end of the video or up on the website page in case you have any ideas or contacts or information, or just want to send him a message of support and gratitude for the work or encouragement for the Pygmy people. And I do thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and let's go on over to the video at this time. Thank you. Hey, greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Indigenous Wisdom for the Earth series. Today, we have a guest from Worldwide Initiative for Development, and I'd like to turn it over directly to Mukamba to introduce himself and his organization. Mukamba, thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mukamba Watongoka Michel, CEO of Worldwide Initiative for Development and for the Littles, WWIDHN. This NGO was founded by me and the other university students in 2006. The goal of this organization is to help the poor people, the deaf, blind, Pygmy, and orphan in east part of DRC, Republic Democratic of Congo. Especially we work in South North Tanganyika and Maniema provinces. We work on 4 provinces. Our work, we support the poor people. When we beginning this activity, this NGO, we start for the orphan because of tribal war. Many parents was dead, so we decided to help them, the orphan. So we start by primary school. We construct the primary school, and then after construct the primary school, we correct all of the children. We also register 128 children orphan, and then we support everything for them. We give them clothes, food, and even school fee, everything we give to them. And after that, we construct the second school. It was for deaf and blind school in Uvira territory. In that school, we support also 98 blind students in primary school. We give to them everything, school fee, living expense, and others. And then we growing up. When we reach in 2013, we start working by Pygmy. So we change it, we add the hand for the little. As you know, the Pygmy as a short one in the world. They measure like 1 meter and 40. That's the short guy. So in that 2013, we started working to help them. So we try to do our best. We visited different villages to visit the Pygmy area. And we saw the Pygmy life is very, very difficult for the Pygmy. So the history of the Pygmy, as you hear about it, the Pygmy as the first inhabitation in Central of Africa. And then when they came to Africa, in Central of Africa, the Pygmy went to live on the forests. They don't live on the town because they live by hunting, they eating animals, and everything they work is traditionally. You can check even the house, everything is traditionally. So they choose to be living on the forests. They stay there. They spend all the time on the forests. So we try to teach them how they can live together with other communities. As you know, in DRC, there are about 450 tribes in this country. So altogether, I will teach the Pygmy to live together with other community. But because the life condition of the Pygmy is very, very poor, their living is difficult. They need everything. Housing difficult. They don't have land. They don't have food. They don't have clothes. They don't have everything. Even children studying is difficult for them. So the first activity we decide to do with them, we go there, we ask them what you need, why you are here. So the history in DRC, when they tried to make the national park, all of the Pygmies live on the forest, but the government threw them out. They told them to go to live on the city, but they didn't give them any area, any land for them to live. So the Pygmy life was become more difficult. Even right now, they don't have any land. So where they live, they rent there, they stay there 6 months, 2 years, and then they go away again because they don't have own land. So the first activity we start, we call some of the partner, and then we decided to buy some of the land for them. Already from 2013 to now, we already bought 2 hectares, and then we distribute for the Pygmy. And then we already construct some of the small house and the centers. We teach them the hand skills. So in 1970, the government decided to throw them away. So they go to the city. They live there without any supporter. So their life will become difficult. So we decided to help them. Even ourselves, we don't have much budget, we don't have money. We do okay, we say, okay, we will do our best, and then we try to look for some of the supporter who can come to help them. So that's how we start. In 2015, some of the Korean people, they came. They tried to help. They support us to construct some of the school, and then to build some of the centers for sewing school. So they give many materials. Or I will send the picture, you will see it. So I visit myself with the Pygmy people to Korea, South Korea, because I was studied there. So I invited them there, and they show there to the world the Pygmy life, because it's too very difficult. Exactly in 2018, the war started again between Pygmy community and the Bantu. Other population of Congo called them Bantu and the Pygmy. They start to fighting because of the lands. So we try to make another project. We call the project Umoja. It means the project call it Umoja. It means in English together. We call the project together. In that project, we construct 2 primary school and the 2 culture centers. So there we invite all of the community together. The children they study together, and then we call to the center, to the culture center. We showing many music, traditional music and the dance. And then we think when they try to stay together, it helps them to start to finish that's the conflicts between them, and then they live together. So that's why help us. So in 2020, when the pandemic of COVID coming, everything was stopped. And then it was become so difficult for them to live. Even right now, I'm saying many of them, they're suffering because of this pandemic. And already we lost 82 of Pygmy tribal. They pass away. But we try to do our best for them. So we try to start a new project, agroforestry project, because we think this community, if they stay there without do anything, it will be more difficult for them to be survive in future. So we decided to make this project for them. So we choose 2 territory, Masisi and the Nyiragongo. And because in this territory, about 6% the Pygmy live there. So we think when we make this project, we can call them all together and they work together. And then in the future, the life will be changing slowly. So that is our work we do. And right now, we already had many projects for the Pygmy people and for the poor people. But everything was a problem. We are limited by the budgets because we don't have financial supporter. We try to call some of the friends who are out of DRC, some of the foreigners try to help us, to support us, but it's not too much. So that's why we continue every time, we beg, we look for someone who can support them. As I says, if you see the Pygmy life face to face, you will start to crying. Because when you see the housing is very difficult, clothing, food, everything. Especially the Pygmy, they have a culture. Each family must have minimum 6 children. That is minimum. But usually it's 8, 10, 12. And then they don't have anything. You can check their house. They live in small house. There is no room, no kitchen, nothing. And then they stay there all together, father, mother, and all the children stay there. So we try to teach them. By 2017, we get chance, World Bank accept to support us. We construct 120 house for the Pygmy. Then we give them, we construct that house, 2 rooms and the living room and 1 toilet. So they was very, very happy, because even right now I'm saying there are too many, but their life is too difficult. Education for the children, right now I'm saying they just have 6 bachelor degree for Pygmy tribes. And the secondary school, college level is just 10. And the others are limited just for primary school. It's about just 2%. And the others, they don't study. Because as you know here, everything we need to pay money. Even the balance is too cheaper, but for them, they don't have any income. Their life is very, very difficult. We try to do our best to help them, to support them, but also we need some of the supporter from out who can support them. And usually we say to the supporter, they are welcome. If they need to come, they are welcome to visit. We can guide and we can show the Pygmy through Pygmy life. Because when I explain, you can think maybe it's not true. But when you can arrive there, you can try to cry, oh my God, what life this population live. So that's why I take this opportunity today to explain about Pygmy life to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that helps me to understand how they were living. And yeah, it's difficult to hear that the government just pushed them out and didn't have any consideration for providing for them a place to actually go. And it just sounds like their entire culture is disrupted over and over again. And now the work you're doing with the sewing schools and the carpentry, that's just trying to give them the skills so that they can help adjust to within all the other things that are around them now. Yeah, that's so much. How is it with I see something also you've distributed goats. And are they also learning like farming, or is there just no land for them to raise goats and farm?
Yeah, right now we have a big problem for them, because we try to teach them some of the activities. But as you know, the first activities we must do is agriculture for them, because they cannot study, they don't know how to write, they don't know how to do anything. But farming is easy for them. The first problem we need is just lands. We need to have lands where they can make agriculture, and then where they can construct their own house. That is the big issue we have. And then for this project of agroforestry, we think if we buy a land, and then we can divide small to each family, it can help them to make a small garden. And then they can make a sweet potato inside, and then it can help them to do, and then to have foods every day, every time. But when because some of the partners say, oh, we just give them food. I told them, no, give food is not important. Most important is to teach them how they can have food themselves, because we cannot be there every day to give them food. When we are not there, they will die. But we need to teach them how they can make money and how they can get food themselves. So that's why our priority right now is we need to have some budget to buy lands, and then to make the projects, this agroforestry project for them, and then to add more carpenter center and more sewing school center for them. It can help them to do something. As you know, the lady, they don't have powerful every day, but they need to know how they can make clothes, they can sewing machine, they can clothes, clothing, and the men, how they can make carpenter hands, they can construct the house, the chairs, and other activities. So that's why I beg you, I beg all of your team, if can be possible, to help this community, to help these tribes to continue to survive, because this pandemic was making their life more difficult than before. As you know, because of this pandemic, you cannot move to this city to other city. You need to stay in your city. But in this city, for the Pygmy, they don't have any money to buy food, to do something. So they will die. So I told you, many of them already passed away because of this pandemic. It's not about pandemic only, but because of hunger, because of food. There is no food, they died. So I beg you, I beg your team, I beg the three sisters, if they can have opportunity, they can have someone to introduce a WWIDHFL to the world, so that they can come through this community, this population, because they are very poor and they are very, very in suffering.
Yes, so anyone who's watching, or anyone who has possibilities or ideas who might be able to help you, they just reach out to you. Should I share like your email or your Facebook page? What would be the best way for people who want to help to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can share. Already I sent you mail many times. You can share our mail to them. We have also Facebook page. We have Facebook page. You can share. Yes. Our website didn't work this year because of pandemic. You don't have much money to pay it, so that's right. But Facebook page is working, and the email address is there, no problem. So we beg that to help this community. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's so wise that, as you said, to teach them the skills of how to grow their own food and how to make their own homes and sew their own clothes, instead of just handing the food out, because that gives them the self-reliance that they need to survive. And yeah, there's just so much to be done, and there's just so many, it seems like, obstacles that have come their way. But I love that you're working on helping them and working with others to try to find a way. And I'm so grateful that you've come and you've shared that with us, and so that we can share it with our audience and more people. And hopefully there will be some people who can reach out and might have ideas for you, or might have resources. And let's just see if we can get some contact and information going to see what can be done to help them out. Yeah. Is there, go ahead.
Yeah, about contacts, you can give it to them if they need, if they ask you the contact, the address, even page. And then some of the pictures, I will send you again today, some of the pictures, and then some of our documents, so you can see the pictures, the history. You can read more, and then if they need, you can try to share with them. No problem about that.
Yeah, I think there's one other thing I wanted to ask about, because you were saying that they have endured so much rejection and discrimination that they live their lives in a state of frustration, and it pushes them to wonder and be insecure and miserable, and that it's just so difficult to, I guess, their morale, how they go about living their life. It seems like there's just been so much oppression on them. And I love that you have community centers that kind of weave in, trying to bring back in that cultural connection and the dance and the joy, and try to reinstill that in their life. That's such an important aspect, bringing, especially if you're in a life for its constant frustration, to have something that brings you a moment's joy can certainly take you to a different place and give you hope for the next day. And I just really appreciate everything that you're doing for them. And is there any last thing that you would like to share that you think is important for us to know, or that you haven't already shared?
As I'm saying, myself, I was studying in South Korea. I was get some of the friends. I was introduced the Pygmy history for them, and then he decided to invite them there. We visit there with the Pygmy. They showing they dance, traditional dance. As you know, the Pygmy, they like to dance and the music. So we visit to South Korea. We they show traditional dance and music to Korean people. So I think that can be good for them, even for you also. Even you can, your friend or your team, they can have that opportunity to give them or to invite, because sometimes when someone is explaining about the life of someone, you think maybe it's not true, maybe make liar, maybe. But when you live and you see, oh, wow, this is right, this life. I remember in 2016, one of the boss of Piketty in Korea visits DRC because to meet them. He was have a plan to stay 1 month in DRC, but he stayed just 10 days. Because when we reach the village, he tried to cry. He started crying. He thought, I need to go back. And then he decided to leave, to cut his travel days, and then he returned back to South Korea because we saw many people are suffering. So I think this is important for us and for them to share the history, to share the history to the world, and the world know the Pygmy tribers out there, their condition, their life situation, what they live, why this one. As I'm saying, when you see them and then you see the history, you can think, oh, this tribe was very suffering. We need to do something. As ourselves, as an organization, we cannot do everything for them. We choose this is most important right now because we don't have much budget, but because we have this small budget, we do this one. So when you have more budget again, we do this one. We go step by step because we cannot do everything, because also we don't have budget to do everything for them. Their lives, they need everything right now. They need land for their living. They need housing. They need food. They need clothes. They need medicine. They need their children must be educated. Everything they need. So as an NGO, we cannot do everything. If this support accept, okay, for this year, I will take charge for the education for the children. I will support 100 children. Okay, that is good. We send 100 children to school. Oh, for me, I will take charge of women who are pregnant. I will take charge for them. Oh, that one, okay, we take that project. Oh, me, for this year, I will take charge. I will construct 10 houses for 10 family. I will make some of the CD activities, like a goat project, like farming. So it depends on the support. When the support is coming, it's okay. This one, I do this one, and also, okay. We choose which one is best, and then we do it. Because our support, we need to get more support from the world to help this community. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I'm hoping, that this helps to get the word out, because until you wrote in, I hadn't heard of, them or their situation. So I'm really grateful that you wrote into Tree Sisters to ask about it, and that we're able to give you a place to bring your voice and let the whole world know. And I wish you so much success and support that comes your way, and that things just line up for you, because it is very important work, and it's just so good that you're bringing this to our awareness, and I'm very grateful. So thank you so much for joining us. And yes, please do send over whatever information you want to share. I'll make sure it gets added in.
Yeah, thank you also. Thank you. And thank you so much for everything. I will send all of this information by email right now. I sent to you some of the pictures.
Yes, I still have several of the pictures that you sent, so I will gladly use those. But anything else you want to send, that's great too. And keep in touch. I'm very grateful. Thank you so very much for coming and being with us today.
Yes, thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.